Good night, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for your time, and I hope you enjoy this presentation. We're going to have a good conversation about Leanception, about agile methodologies, about design thinking, and Lean startup. So, the title of this session is the title of my book, Leanception: How to Align People and Build the Right Product. If there is one message that I want you to leave the room with today, is this one. Think big, start small, learn fast. That's the core of the movement, the Lean Startup. In order for you to understand this message, I want to go through those topics. I'll first give you a little context. I'll tell a lot about my story so you understand where did Leanception come from. Then we will talk quite a bit about Lean Startup, the Lean Startup movement, and the concept of MVP, the minimal viable product. Then we'll go in details about the Leanception, and we'll close with a Q&A, a conversation about your questions, your context today, and how to relate it to Leanception. Okay, context. I'll tell you the story of my life. Stories are interesting. I'm Brazilian. I was born and raised in Rio de Janeiro. I went to college, then I did a master. And my master were in the years of 97 to 99, the beginning of the internet. My master was about object-oriented, and I did follow someone called Kent Beck. He was famous back then about design patterns and small talk. Then I moved to Silicon Valley. I moved to California, US in 2000, where I lived until 2008. In Silicon Valley, when I just got there, I had a paper on my master thesis published. I went to the conference, the biggest conference at the time, and then I met Kent Beck because I used to follow him because of my master thesis. When I went to meet him, he was signing a new book. The book was called XP Explained, Extreme Programming Explained. I had no idea what it was about. I thought it was a small talk book. I was a developer. I bought it. It was the first book about agile methodologies. I started following agile methodologies back then. I worked in 7 startups from 2000 to 2006. And I like the startup movement. I like to work on small companies, building some product to figure out if people are going to use it later. The thing I didn't like that back on the days we would work for a long time on the product to find out that that was not what the users wanted. In 2006, I went to work for ThoughtWorks. ThoughtWorks was one of the first companies to invest in agile methodology. Martin Fowler came to work to ThoughtWorks in 2001. He was also a friend with Kent Beck. And then he influenced a lot ThoughtWorks to work on the agile way. I joined ThoughtWorks in 2006 because I liked the agile methodologies, but very few companies did it well. I joined ThoughtWorks. And when I joined ThoughtWorks, I loved the initial phase of a project. It had a name back then, was given by Rational. Rational, when I studied my master thesis, I used Rational a lot because of UML, Unified Modeling Language. And back then they created something that they called a 5-phase rational unified process. And the first phase, they named it Inception. Before then, you used to call analysis, design, implementation. When Rational came, they gave different names, they called it Inception. The first phase of the project to understand everything we need to do about the requirements, to understand the initial requirements, and the architecture, the technical part, and figure out the release plan. That was the Inception phase. When I went to US in 2006, ThoughtWorks used the word Inception, but was Inception in more of an agile way. Back in the days of 2006, user stories was already famous. Mike Cohn had published his book in 2003. So on the agile inceptions, we used to try to understand all the requirements, but now using user stories. And we were already being influenced by the design thinking movement. I was in US in California. We started having the user-centric design where we try to understand what the user needs. We try to understand the different personas, their journeys to figure out what are the user stories and decide the release plan. I worked with Jeff Patton. He was also in ThoughtWorks in 2006, and I followed him in a few Inceptions. I also had the chance, I didn't work directly with, but I met 2 years later, Jonathan Rasmussen, and he also liked Inceptions. And he created something that in ThoughtWorks he called the Agile Inception Deck, and later he published as the book Agile Samurai. where he had a collection of a lot of activities to help with this Inception phase. So I became an Inception facilitator in 2006. I moved to India in 2008, and I would facilitate the Inceptions a lot for UK. We had a lot of projects from UK. I would travel to UK, spend 3 weeks in UK, bring the project back to India. Then I moved to Brazil in 2010. In Brazil, I did the same. I was working for ThoughtWorks. I would go to US, spend 3 weeks on the client with a new team, do Inception, 3 or 4 weeks, a lot of activity we would do, and then bring the project back to Brazil. But in 2011, I had a son, João. My son João was born in 2011. I was the most experienced Inception facilitator in the company. I had the Inception schedule, a new team. I didn't know what to do. Until today, I cannot stay far from my son for more than a week. I purchased the ticket for the whole team for 3 weeks, and my ticket I purchased for 1 week. And I didn't know what to do. Okay, I'll do the first week there, and the 2 other weeks I'm gonna be remote, it's gonna be difficult. On that flight, that was 2011, I had a Kindle, and the book that I had to read that was on top of my list was called The Lean Startup. Eric Ries had just released the book Lean Startup. I followed the startup movement because I used to live in Silicon Valley, and a lot of people started talking, hey, this new book is really good. So I read that book on the flight. On that Monday, when I opened the Inception, I opened with a different speech, a different presentation. I told the people, okay, today instead of focusing on the overall product, we're going to focus on the MVP. We're in the Silicon Valley. We should be working with Lean Startup. We'll focus on the MVP. Therefore, we don't need 3 weeks. We're going to do everything in 1 week. That was my first attempt to reduce the length of the Inception, put the focus on the MVP. It did not go well because all the activities were focused on user stories, architecture, detailing, release planning, and did not fit in 1 week. But a few years later, while I continued doing Inceptions in 1 week, shortening the Inception and trying different activities, something went really well. I was blogging a lot, especially in Portuguese because I was living in Brazil, and then a lot of people started following my blog. And then I published a book, and then a book. Then suddenly, I published the first book in 2014. Around 2016, I had the feedback for more than 50, 60 Inceptions that I had facilitated myself, and hundreds of Inceptions that other Brazilians were facilitating on the same style. Then compiling all this information, in 2016, I wrote the article with Martin Fowler on his blog about Inception because he started hearing the stories about ThoughtWorks Brazil, how we were doing things different, so he helped me shape that article in a better wording in English. And then in 2018, I released the book in Brazil, and since it was released, it is the bestseller in Amazon. And now the book is in English and Spanish. So I told you this story so you understand I was a developer, agile methodology, where I was influenced by design thinking and Lean Startup. So this is the book in Portuguese. It is a bestseller in Brazil, in amazon.com.br. And it was released now in English and in Spanish. So a big difference in my life, and it took me a while to understand this, because my whole career, since the college, I used to talk about this iron triangle, that we should focus, you cannot give 4 of those variables, you can only give 3. And we do scope management because the quality has also to be high. And we do the project management following this. Even on agile methodology, when you do burn up or the backlog for the sprint, or you want to add one story, you got to remove something. I was still using this iron triangle. But suddenly, I put the focus on MVP and things don't connect because MVP comes from the movement Lean Startup and things are a cycle there. It's build, measure, learn. Okay, there's an idea, a feature, a new product, or evolution of your product. Build something, what? The minimum viable to validate this idea. That's the concept of MVP. But once you build the minimum viable, you're going to collect real data from the usage of this minimal viable thing that you built, product, feature, whatever it is. And then you decide, let's continue this direction, let's pivot, let's get this learning and change the direction because now we are more informed. Now we know how the users are using it, we know what they want. So this is very different from here. Here we are talking about product development, how the successful companies in Silicon Valley have been working. Here we're talking about traditional project management. So the Leanception book, it complements the Lean Startup. When I read this book, I was amazed. It's one of, there are some books in life that change the way you think. This book changed the way I thought. But I am a consultant, I work for ThoughtWorks. Then I would go to the client, I like Inceptions, but I didn't know how to align a group of people to decide this is the MVP. So my book, The Leanception, it's about aligning a group of people to decide, yes, that's the MVP, that's how we start the product, and decide the increments after that. So this book's amazing, talk why you should work with Lean Startup. My book, it's amazing if you need to align a group of people to decide what is this MVP. Okay, what is the MVP? MVP, minimum viable product, is the simplest version that you can make to validate your business idea, your business hypothesis. In fact, you don't have a business requirement, you have a hypothesis. You believe the users will use your product in a certain way. So build the minimum necessary to validate it. Don't build the whole product. I'll use an example that I used for a long time with agile methodologies. Well, I'll go back to my master thesis, which I don't regret because it's part of us. My master thesis was about a layered architecture, and I used the cake example. We're going to build a product. We're talking about 1997, right? It would take years to build a product. So first you build the database layer, and then you build the objects, the object-oriented layer on top of Corb, J2EE, for whoever is old enough know what I'm talking about. And then you have the interface layer, event-oriented. Those are different layers, and then you connect everything. After a few years, you spend months doing requirement and months doing design, and then you release, and then you figure out if people use it or not. When I went to US and I started to work with agile methodologies, I had to adapt what I was talking about. I said, okay, we're going to understand the whole cake we need to build, because I used to facilitate Inception. So we'll do Inception to understand the whole cake, but we're going to deliver slice by slice. And those are the user stories. So you're going to receive your full cake after 1 year, but we'll give you slice by slice. After 10, 20 sprints, you have your whole cake. And then in 2011, I changed the speech, and I got very confused for a while because I was trying to do the Inception about the whole cake, but I was delivering the MVP. And then the metaphor didn't connect anymore. Then I changed the metaphor. We're not building a cake. I'm building a cupcake. By the way, I'm not building one cupcake. I'm building 3, because I don't know which one the users want. So I build 3 cupcakes. It's much faster to build a cupcake than a cake. It's not a slice of a cake. It is cupcakes. The cupcake has a cherry on top, just like the cake. It's amazing, it's beautiful, it's tasteful, but it's something small that helps me to validate if the user wants that. If the user wants that, maybe we increase that cupcake, it will become a cake or a wedding cake. In fact, there is a wedding company in US, it's very interesting. Back when I used to live there, was weddingcake.com in San Francisco. The couple would go to the website, decide the flavor they like, and schedule an appointment. And once they get there, there would be a few cupcakes with combination of those flavors for the couple to try. And then they would say, okay, I like this one. Then they would build the wedding cake according to the flavor that the user wants, not what you think it's going to sell more. Give another example, another metaphor. Let's say, and this happens to me a lot as an Inception facilitator. I go to a large corporation and they tell me, look, I need to build a product to cut grass. It's a metaphor here. But no one's going to tell you I need MVP. They did business research. They talked to different users. They analyzed the market. They're like, there's a lot of grass here to be cut. I need to build a tractor because this tractor is going to cut a lot of grass. It's going to be comfortable for the person who sits and everything. And then you run a Leanception and you align the group of people to decide what is the MVP in this context. And the group will come up with something like a scissors. It's much faster to build this. You build this in a few weeks, a few months. And with this, you can validate your hypothesis. A few months First, if I build something to cut grass, is anyone gonna buy it? If you build a tractor, it's gonna take you a year, you're gonna sell for whatever, 3,000 euros. A scissor is 50 euros. If no one's buying a scissors for 50 euros, maybe they want to buy a tractor to cut grass. Maybe there is no grass. You thought it is grass, but it's plastic grass. You don't need anything to cut it. Or you build a few scissors, you don't put all over, let's say all over the city here. You select 1 or 2 stores that sells things for people that take care of garden and see how much it sells. And then you collect the feedback and people are gonna tell, do you know what? I came here, but I wish I had a service to cut grass. I don't wanna buy equipment to cut grass. And then you pivot your business and now you end up with an app that connects people cutting grass that people that needs gardener. That's what MVP does for you. A possibility to pivot your business, not only the product. Or let's say people still want to buy it and then they say, oh, it gives back pain. Then the next product increment, which is an MVP, because you're going to validate, you try to sell this now, like maybe you sold more, there is no back pain, but it's difficult to move for a long time, and then you put wheels, and then until maybe someday you get into that vision that you had 1 year ago. Usually what happens, I do a lot of inceptions. You always have a product vision, but we focus on the MVP. It's very difficult for a company to achieve exactly the vision that they have. But they achieve something better, because they achieve whatever the users want, and it's good for the business. Okay, any other examples? I'm going to bring examples closer to us, to digital products. First one, which I think it's an amazing example, iPhone. Everybody knows that Steve Jobs was a perfectionist. The product that he was involved with are like, they're perfect. And look what he did with iPhone. When iPhone was released, GPS technology was available. iPhone did not have GPS technology. The phone calls on iPhone was worse than the majority of the competitors. When he released iPhone, he told everybody, you can build, I know this because I was a developer, you can build apps that are going to run on top of our platform. And here's the specification for our platform. The platform was not ready. He was testing if developers would answer and saying, I want to build an app. The only apps that would run were internal apps. I had a friend that used to work there. By the way, this friend, he told me that there was a bug, the copy-paste bug. If someone here had a friend that had an iPhone, I had a friend that had one. He could not do a copy-paste from one app to the other. It was a bug. The developer that created the bug, that special feature, told Steve Jobs, I need 3 weeks for it to be on the firmware. Steve Jobs did not wait. Was it a bad strategy? And you have to think about Steve Jobs. He was a perfectionist. Why did he release such an incomplete product? It's not a product, it's an MVP. He was testing a hypothesis. He learned with the years. Another amazing example. I don't know if you know Mark. He used to study on MIT. He dropped the college. He had an idea. I was a developer back then. It was pretty easy to build a site like this. A lot of frameworks would do it for you like in less than a day. But instead of opening it to the whole world and say, look what an amazing idea I have, he created something really simple to upload pictures and compare. He copied the email from his colleagues. Only his classmates could access this, and he shared by email. Hey, share the picture from last weekend. They used it, they liked it. And then he copied all the emails from the people in the computer science department and shared again. People liked and gave more feedback. Then he met Eduardo, by coincidence a Brazilian that was studying economics at MIT, had more business view, and then they copied all the emails from the people from economics as well, because maybe it was only the people from computer science that would like this. They liked it. They were doing build, measure, learn, and opening to larger audience. And then was MIT and Harvard only. Then they opened to all the universities in the US, the only universities in the US and universities in Europe, just by verifying the email. And then it reached you. When it reached you, why do you think you like it? Because they did build, measure, learn so many times that they knew that people like you would start using Facebook. And today you know what happened. One important thing about MVP and that cycle, build, measure, learn, it's not only for the beginning of the product. Facebook São Paulo, I did a Lean Inception a few years ago. We did a Lean Inception, and they work with MVP until today for adding a small feature to the product. So Lean Inception is not only for the beginning of the product. An example from Brazil, I love this one because I know the founders. Easy Tax. This was 2011. I was already involved in Lean Inception. I used to go to startup weekends, and this came from my city, Rio de Janeiro. So Vinicius and Thales, they got the second place on a startup weekend. I don't know how it's startup weekend here, but in Brazil, you don't get a lot of money. You have fun, stay there for 1 or 2 days, build some idea, present it. They got second place. They got like the equivalent of 100 euros. They could not quit their job. Vinicius, the technical guy, what did he do? Easy Tax. It was an idea to code tax for you, even before mobile was online. He created a website, easytax.com.br in Brazil. Very simple. What's your name? What's your phone number? What's the address you're at? And a button, call me a taxi now. That button was only HTML code. Whoever understands, it's very simple to build. When you click that button, it would send an email. The code was a mail to the email of Vinicius with the field information. And then with that 100 euros, they purchased on Bing, which was cheaper, ads for only one neighborhood in Rio de Janeiro. And then Vinicius would have the 3 numbers of 3 different cab co-ops. He would receive an email, not a lot. Whenever he received an email, he would call, hey, my name is Marcos. I need a cab at this address. And then he would send a text message to the person. That's how they start the business. And they kept on doing, think about MVP and pivot in the business. I won't tell you how much it was sold for, but like, it's amazing how fast it grew, and everything they were doing is build, measure, learn. So here's the thing. If you're gonna work this way, there are 2 phases. It's the exploration phase where there are customer research, ideation workshop, discovery, design thinking discovery workshops. So you experiment a lot of different things and looks like this is a good idea. Okay, it looks like it's a good idea. Then you get together, do a Lean Inception, figure out what's the MVP, and then you go into the exploration phase. Now let's explore. Build the minimum necessary to explore. On the past, we used to build big things after we have the research. Now we build the minimum necessary to explore, put it in the hands of the final users and decide. I continue this direction because the feedback was positive, so I'll keep on increasing the product as I thought I would do, or I pivot because I have real data showing me something different or showing me there is more value if I go in this direction. Or I cancel. If the data shows you your strategy is totally off, you cancel it and do something else. So, to figure out the MVP, you need to think about these 3 perspectives: the business, the user experience, UX, and the technology. The MVP, it's on this intersection. It's very hard to find this intersection. It's very hard to have someone that's complete on those 3 perspectives. You usually have like experienced people and they're very good business people, or very good UX people that understand the user needs, or very good technical people. You usually don't find all these 3 perspectives in the same person. That's why you need a group of people in a room following a sequence of activities to try to understand the different perspectives, and at the end of that week, try to figure out what is the MVP. If you're going to think about the MVP, I already told you the stories of the cupcake. You cannot think about you got to think about the overall product, but you cannot build it from the bottom to the top. First I build the framework or my platform that makes it feasible, and then I will do whatever it's useful and valuable, and at the end I'll have the wow factor, the cherry on top of the cake or the cupcake. You gotta build like a cupcake. It gotta be something small that's feasible to be done, but like on a small piece. It's valuable to the business, for the users, and it has the wow factor. Wow, I want more. I'm gonna give feedback on the iPhone and I will be in line to buy iPhone 2. That's what you want, even though it's an incomplete product, as the vision of the product, but it's an amazing experience and people want more. If you think as a developer or as an engineer for the product, you have to think about the overall architecture. I was a developer, it's very difficult not to think about the final architecture, but you cannot build a few internal components and say this is the MVP. You gotta do something from the user interface all the way to whatever it's your sort of database. Maybe in the middle, all components will be incomplete, but that's okay, because that's the MVP. You're trying to validate your idea first. If things are perfect, then you make it a more robust, a better architecture. It's hard as a developer to point and say, don't do a complete component with TDD and continuous integration, because that's what I did my whole career. But now working with MVP, don't overdo it, because it's the minimum viable architecture to fill the needs for the MVP. From the business side, business, thanks God, they always think about the money, and there's always some sort of sales funnel. I like these ones, the R metrics, like you bring people acquisition until you have referral and recurring revenue. But the way you build and you think about MVP, you want to be, oh, look how many people download my app, look how many visits I have on my page. I need to prove that from that many numbers, at least this much is converting, or it's showing me that it's going to convert soon. So the business people will help you think about this to make a viable product from the business perspective. So that's the challenge. How do you decide the MVP? Each perspective points on a different direction. It's very hard to make something that's viable for the business, but the users love it. And then it's feasible to do the minimum necessary. It's very difficult to find that intersection. So how do you decide? No, it's not easy. You get everybody in a room with a lot of space for a week to collaborate, people from different backgrounds, different perspectives, representing the business, the user needs, and the technical people, to figure out what is that intersection. So that's the recipe I share on the book. It's a practical book. It was not a theoretical recipe. Like after I'd done it like more than 100 times, and I got feedback from more than, I don't even know how many Brazilians, end up writing the book. So first you do the Inception, then you work with the agile, DevOps, all this beautiful, efficient way. First you do the Inception to be very to the point, decide what is the MVP, and then you work very efficiently. So who goes to the Inception? Everybody involved on that product context. So you get these people together in a room for a week, collaborating, talking about their different perspectives. Okay, I'll explain the Inception in a few minutes. First, the agenda. It is a one-week agenda. Longer, sometimes I had Inception in Brazil, in the city I was living at. I could do a Inception for 2 weeks. I tried. When I did it longer than a week, what happens is that you end up thinking too much more than the MVP. It's not worth it. I tried shortening it. I wish I could make a Inception in 2 days, so I could go back home faster as a consultant. I was not able to. The reason is there are 3 different perspectives. If you cut it short, means I'm cutting some perspective out of the business, out of the conversation. And Inception need a lot of brainstorming, so I tried a lot of time. For me, this is the perfect agenda. It's a 5-day agenda. You start on Monday, don't start 9 in the morning, start a little later. Do a kickoff where the main sponsor, the main stakeholder of that initiative will tell why this group is together to figure out this new whatever it is, or to add this feature to this existing product, or to refactor, or to do whatever it is. The main sponsor will talk. After the main sponsor talk, the Inception facilitator is going to talk, because as Inception, it's a new thing for a lot of things, you need, well, not this presentation, but a shorter version first to explain what is the concept of MVP, and second, what is the agenda that we're going to do here and who needs to be in the room. That's the kickoff. After the kickoff, well, I'll talk about the overall agenda. There are two colors here, black and white. Black is the beginning of the week and the end of the week. Those are for the stakeholders. Stakeholders are people that have a lot of money but don't have time. Those are the people that they cannot be in the room the whole time because they're involved in so many other initiatives. So it's okay. If you cannot be in the room the whole time, you're a stakeholder. Be here at the kickoff so you understand what we're going to be doing here this week, but come back on the showcase where you show the result of the work, and then you either approve or disapprove or help us figure out where did you mess up, how does this connect with the other initiatives in the organization. So that's a very important point. If you are a stakeholder, you cannot be the whole week, be in the beginning and come back at the end. But if you are not a stakeholder and you're involved on this, you should be an active team member. You are the PO, you are the UX person, you are a security person, you are a tester, you are whatever you are. You are a team member that should be on it the whole time, because you need to understand the different perspectives. Then everybody else that's not stakeholder is on the war room, on that room the whole week together, following all these activities. The first one, what is the product vision? We are going to write it together, and then we follow by an activity. What is this product? What it's not? What it does not do? Then we go and we share all the information we have about the personas, the people we believe will be involved with this product. And then we do a brainstorm of features, because now we talked about the main business goals and the needs of the people. And then you do a brainstorming, how do we improve people's life and you achieve the business goals? Which features should you build in the product? After doing the brainstorm of the features, you do a review. You do a review from the perspective of the business, how much you believe this will bring to the business. From the point of view of the users, how much the user would love this feature. And from the perspective of the engineer side, okay, how much effort are we talking about here? You do a review for every single feature. After doing that, you're going to do the user journeys. Okay, forget about the business, forget about the technical side. Let's go back to the user shoes. Think about this persona. What does the persona need to accomplish? One of the persona specific goals. Let's talk about the step by step the persona does until that persona accomplishes his or her goal. After doing that, let's read all the journeys again with the following question. How do we improve that personal life with one of our features? And then you map the features to the journey. After doing all of that, then you are in position to try to figure out what's the intersection. And then you build a sequencer where you put in sequence in which order should you build this product, the features of this product. Once you put it in order, but you're in an inception, you know that the goal is the MVP. And then I'll ask, where is the MVP? When do we have that minimal viable to validate the business idea? And people say, okay, up to here, up to this point is the MVP. Great, that's the MVP. Let's build the MVP canvas where we're going to explore it in more detail. And then invite the stakeholders back in the room and present the MVP canvas. What is the product vision? And what is the sequencer? In which order? What's the strategy behind this product? And all the artifacts are visible on the wall. It's a long showcase. It's not a PowerPoint presentation. Things are in the wall. I'll go into details about each activity now. First one, the product vision. This template is from Jeffrey Moore. Jeffrey Moore has amazing books. This template is on his book, Crossing the Cows. Check this template. For who is this product? Start thinking about the people use it. Which problem do these people have? Then you think about what is your product? Give a name to the product. What is the product category? Oh, it's an app, it's a mobile app, it's a platform, it's a service, what is it? What are the main characteristics of this new thing you're working on? Unlike How is the life of these people without your product? Is the competitors, they do it by hand, they do it manually. Our product, what is the main differentiator that your product's gonna have? This is the product vision. Think about the overall product. You still don't know what's the intersection. You gotta think about your strategy about the overall product. On a high level, a business level. But everybody writes the sentence together. In the room there are user representatives and technical people as well. We're all collaborating to write the sentence. Maybe we heard on the kickoff the main sponsor talking about this, but now we write it together, our understanding of the product vision. And then right after that, here's a lot of influence of design thinking. The double diamond where you open the options and then you close. I do this a lot of times in the Inception. You're gonna see on the activities. Here I'm closing the options. Now the product has a name. Usually the product vision is very positive. Then I ask, what is this product? What it's not? What it does? What it does not do? I split the participants in different groups. Each group do two sides of this. Some groups will do the is and the does. Other groups will do the is not and the does not. And then you're gonna have a lot of conversation. Oh, but the product should do this. No, should not do. No, but payments with the other teams, with the other product. Oh, but maybe in 5 years the product could do. It's 5 years. Let's talk about the next year. It's a very rich conversation to define the boundaries of the product. Usually this is not clear, but now things start to become a little more clear for everybody in the room. And then right after that, most likely on the following day, we do activities to share the information we have about the personas. I like this one, it's a simple one. You have a A4 paper split in 4 pieces. One, make a drawing for the persona and give a nickname to make it real. And then you talk about the profile. What's the profile of this persona? How many years, kids, job role, like profile information. So it think about a real persona. Then you think about how's the behavior? How does this persona behavior? Years ago when I was in college, we used to do software for roles, not for people. Now we do software for behavior. People behave differently. Talk about the different personas with different behavior. And then you talk about the needs the persona have. The need is in the context of the Inception. Probably has something to do with your product or you believe you improve something. Do this for several different personas involved in the area that you are working on. It's very important to tell, on this moment, we're not doing customer research. Hopefully someone that's in the room was involved in some discovery phase that did customer research. In the Inception room, we are sharing the current information we have about the personas and representing them. Then you do the feature brainstorming, because now you have the main business goals, the main personas, and then as a facilitator I ask, what should you build in the product to fulfill the need of this persona and to achieve this business goal? And this persona and this other business goal. What about the combination of this persona and that other goal? You start having a feature brainstorming on a higher level. That's not user story level. It's feature level. Then you go for your review. In your review, I use the graph. It's the traffic light graph and then this relative comparison table. On that graph, I'm going to ask, for this feature, do we know how to do it? It's a question for the engineers. Have you done something very similar before? How confident do you feel with this feature? High, medium, low? Yes, I did something just like that in my previous project. High, great. And then I'll ask to the business and the user representatives, do we know what we want from this feature? They might say, I know exactly what I want because I have a lot of research from the users. Or the business tell, I know exactly what I need. Or they say, no, I'm not that sure. If it's high and high, it's going to be green light. It's very certain. There's not a lot of doubt about this feature. I know how to do it. I know what I want. Piece of cake, easy. Some features will be yellow, someone's not too sure, or red, if there is a lot of uncertainty. But for some product that has a lot of innovation, you're going to have uncertainty. So it's okay to have some uncertainty on the product you're building, especially if your product is very innovative. You have some reds and yellows. And then you get 2 features and compare. Okay, those 2 features. One is to connect with a Facebook friend and the other is like print invoice. Which one requires more effort? Oh, the print invoice more effort. Okay, how much more? Is it 2 times more, 3 times more? Oh, 2. Okay, let's call this E from effort, and this 2E. What about this other one? Oh, that would be a 3, and this. Oh, that at 1. 1, 2, or 3. If something comes, oh, that's a 10, sorry, break into smaller features. Let's keep 1, 2, or 3 scale. And the same comparison question. Imagine this would exist in isolation. How much return on investment it would bring back to the business? 1, 2, or 3 dollar signs. There's no figure here, it's just dollar signs. And the question for the users, how much would the user love this feature? 1, 2, or 3 hearts. With this question, when people are answering, they're giving you data information they have from the business side, from the user representative side, and from the technical side. And that's open conversation in front of everybody. It's very important for the alignment, so people understand each other. Now people understand, oh, this feature is simple, oh, this is much more complex, oh, this has a lot of uncertainty. Those are very important information that sometimes the business people don't understand because they don't understand technology, and the technical people don't know about the uncertainty about the users, but now everybody's in the room, we align about this. After you do all of this, you build the several user journeys, as many as you think it's important in your context, but remember, you only have 1 week. So the time constraint is good because you build the most important journeys, and that's enough for the MVP. I don't want to build all the use cases for my product. I want to build the most important journeys in this context. And after you build the most important journeys, after you represent the most important journeys, you map the features to the journey. Where do you improve the user's life? Now it becomes very visible because before it's only people talking. It's the user representative saying, oh, we should do this to improve the user life. Now someone is showing there will improve their life. If you have this feature, the user will love it. Oh, if you add this feature, the business will make more money. And the technical person is going to say, without the minimal log requirements, I cannot release this. The 3 of them, the 3 perspectives are talking at this moment and deciding which features needed when. After they do this, let's put things on a sequencer. I get a flip chart and I put numbers 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a sequence. I just call wave. It's one wave after the other. One wave of releasing a few features. And then please put on those waves in each order should you create those features. The thing I do with waves, like each wave has only fit 3 cards, so don't put more than 3. And with that's kind of a release plan because you have to put things in order 1, 2, 3, but at the same time there are up to 3 features being worked on. And then I ask, where is the MVP? And people are going to say, okay, up to this feature we have MVP. Great, that's the moment you need to have a conversation about MVP. Then we have the MVP canvas. Now that you understand the features on the MVP, and it's much easier to talk about MVP now that you made it tangible. What's the purpose of this MVP? Oh, the purpose of this MVP is to validate if people from the neighborhood Madureira are gonna call taxi online. That's what the MVP is for. Great. Segmented persona. I know this because Thales told Vinicius, the guys from Easy Tax, let's open it all over Brazil. Why? We don't even know if people are going to use it. Mark did on Facebook. Just open to your small group. So they opened only to one neighborhood in Rio. To everybody, no. They thought about the cab drivers, they thought about the co-op operators, and they thought about the people calling the tax. This MVP is only for people calling the tax. It's not for everybody yet. And only for a small segment of people. Which journeys are we improving on this MVP? They could improve the payment, the automatic call to the co-ops. We're only improving calling a tax online. Usually MVP improve either a small piece of a journey or a few journeys. If you have one MVP improving a lot of things, that M is not for minimum anymore. It's too big. From the other side, you already know the features that go in the MVP. What's the expected result? What do you expect from this MVP? Well, if you put 100 euros in ads, we're going to buy 100,000 click-through. We expect that at least 5% will click on this. And from those 5%, we expect that at least 20% of those will call a taxi. Let's say if less than 5% of those 5% call the taxi, it's not a good idea. Great. How do we measure it? Which metrics are you collecting to measure those results? Then you decide which metrics you collect. And at the end, after doing all of this, now you can talk about cost and schedule. I was a developer, it's very uncomfortable to talk about estimate, but in the context of the MVP with so much information, it's much easier to give a date. And we need to give a date because the business needs a date. And then you give a date for the MVP. So you say, hey, looks like I need a month to build it. And after building it, I need 2 more weeks collecting data. And after that, let's get together as the group again and look at the data to decide if we persevere or we pivot. Eric Ries called this the pivot or persevere meeting. And that's our MVP canvas, which, by the way, is the main artifact we're going to show to the sponsor that comes back for the showcase. Okay, now I have a question. I showed you in detail all the activities on the Inception. What is the most important artifact of the Inception? Who wants to try? I know because I never gave this presentation here, so I know you don't know the answer, at least what's in the presentation.
Value.
The value? That's a good answer, especially that value. Value is... What else? Who else? It's not value that I add. If I'm asking, it's because no one's going to get the answer, huh?
The vision.
The vision. The product vision is amazing because it helps with the strategy. Sasha, what is the most important artifact?
Happy customer.
Happy customer. That's a very important one. The most important artifact, I use the word artifact in purpose. The MVP plan is amazing. The vision is amazing. The canvas show you like which customer are going to be happy when. The most important thing are the people in the room. Because it's not the MVP canvas is really good because it shows a plan on how to pivot when you do it. But it is the people in the room, it's the relationship the people build. It's the compromise that they build together and decide what's the MVP and even tell a date. That's what's going to make of this plan a success. Because when you start working with MVP, the most common thing is that you pivot a lot of times. And if you have a good group that got connected for 1 week and they understood the different perspectives, different point of view, and together they made a plan, that's what's going to be the success. It's not the plan itself, but it's that, in Portuguese we call liga. It's that thing that connected people during that Inception week. That's what's going to make the success. And that's what I realized because Inception, I did a lot of Inceptions in Brazil, and the teams are so successful. And some of them pivot so many times, but they achieve the success. So it's not about what's in the picture. It's not about the MVP canvas or the sequencer. It's about the team working together very collaboratively. So if you work for MVP, especially following the Inception, and that was a confusion that I had in my mind because I was influenced by both sides, user-centered design, design thinking, and Lean Startup. You get in this cycle because Lean Startup tells you, don't talk to the users, they don't know what they want. That was Eric Ries, Steve Jobs. Don't talk to the users, Ford used to say this, don't talk to the users, build something and give to them. And you have a lot of other very smart people, Tim Brown from IDEO, that say, no, let's understand the user needs, the user desire, and then we decide what to build. Those are user-centered design. Understand the users and iterative design to achieve a great product. Or Lean Startup, which is approach based on let's validate the hypothesis. You have a hypothesis, don't build a prototype, build the MVP and put in the hands of the customer. Those are different perspectives. And look what happened with the MVP canvas, which is the result, the last artifact of the Inception. On one side, you have persona journey and which features we are changing or improving some of the actions. That's based on what I know about the user, based on the learning that I already have about the user, what am I going to build? But on the other side is exactly build, which features I'm building, what am I measuring, and what do I want to learn? What's the result I expect to get from this MVP? What's the learning I need to measure on this MVP? So the MVP canvas at the end, which is the final result of the Inception, it shows very clear that's mixing both user-centered design and lean startup. And I don't care where you come from. Maybe your company it's more research-oriented, or your company is more about innovation, or Silicon Valley startup that's trying more MVP and build, measure, learn. Whatever is your style, once you work with MVP, you get in this cycle of building and learning, bringing together lean startup with user-centric design. So that's the Inception. That's what Inception is doing for us. It's bringing together a view from design thinking, user-centric design, along with lean startup and combining those two very successful processes. And with this, I want to thank you all for being here, and let's open for conversation.
I have one question for the Slidos. Wouldn't it be more natural to do first the user journeys and then after the feature offer?
Amazing question. Yeah, I will repeat. Wouldn't it be better to do first the user journey and then the feature brainstorming? That's a very common question, and when I was writing the book in English, I was like, should I change the order or not? I prefer, well, if it is your first Inception, you can switch the order. It might be easier if you do product vision, it is not, what are the personas, what are the journeys, and don't do the feature brainstorming, look at the journey. I prefer the other way around because I am influenced more from lean startup than design thinking. The reason I do feature brainstorming before is because I don't want to look for the current journey of the user. I want to look at the business goals, the user needs, and do a feature brainstorm to try to bring some innovative idea. And then with the feature brainstorm, it's like opening, like the double amount again, I'm opening. But when I do the journey, I'm verifying if I can improve the user's life with one of the new innovative ideas. So that's why I prefer to do in this order. You open for more innovation.
Yeah, so thank you for the presentation. It was like really interesting to hear another view on lean startup. So my question is maybe more about your experience with this methodology. And have you ever had such a situation that everything is going smoothly, everything is okay, but at the end, at the showcase, everyone realizes that it's not gonna work? And what to do in such situation? So after that, you will try to do still, or just say, okay guys, no, let's start again?
That's a very good question, but I think I never had the exception that everything goes smooth. It's, I have to be honest, because we're bringing together people from different perspectives, and things don't go that smooth, but you don't want things to go smooth because you want to have that, it's not a lot of tension, but you want to look at different perspectives. So that's the thing about Inception. It's not that easy to facilitate, and you're going to have like, oh, I think this is better, no, I think that's better. What you do, you postpone the decisions to the sequencer. But what might happen is some stakeholders are not in the room. They come back in the showcase, and they disagree with what they see. And that's fine. By the way, that's amazing, because if they disagree, they're going to disagree anyway if you do this 1 month or 2 months later. At least they're going to disagree on Friday, and they're going to tell you why. And by the way, the showcase is not a presentation. The showcase, we're talking about the post-its on the wall. So if someone disagrees, you have a conversation about it and you change the order. In fact, I did an Inception 2 weeks ago that at the end, I cannot tell because it's always from a specific company, I cannot tell the strategy behind it, but at the end, the group presented it and the CTO was there, and I was like, no, we should not start with this market. We are going to start with the other market. Because the other market has this need and I have the contact. But it's the CTO contact. No one in the room knew that. We're all going in one direction because of the knowledge we had in the room. The CTO came, no, this is going to be better for us. I'm going to call the person coming here, could not come on that day, came on Monday. But he said, let's switch the MVP. This is not the segment, it's going to be this other market. Oh, for that market, no, we don't need this feature. You can remove this feature, but we're going to need this other one. And it's not a fail. It's a conversation. So you got to be open. I'll give you another example. This is like from October. Successful inception, amazing, great. At the end, the team looked at the MVP and said, okay, this is going to take us 4 months. And then the stakeholders like, no, we have budget up to December. This got to be on December. And you're like, it's not possible. No, it's got to be in December. In the middle of the inception, there was a decision that we could not use the open source project. We had to build it ourselves. And I was the facilitator, and they're very strong. No, we don't use open source here. We got to build it from scratch. And then I said, okay, I remember in the middle of the inception that we could not use the open source. Could we use the open source? Then I asked the developers, what if we use the open source? Would that go faster? And they're like, oh, the features are there. Okay, let's look at the features. Oh, let's look only at the MVP features. Which one of those features that we need for the MVP would go faster if you use the open source? And they said this, and that was the majority. I'm like, how much faster? They're like, oh, this open source is really good. I use in my last project, like I could do it in less than a month. Guess what happened? Okay, you can use open source. So those are the situations that happen. But I consider them to be very good because you bring the conversation forward instead of postponing a problem.
Okay, my question is related to the previous. Top 3 the most common issues which stop the flow of the process and how to protect against it.
Okay. 3 most common issues. First one, you won't get 1 week. First one is convincing. No, 1 week, no. 1 week is impossible. I give you 1 day. I'm like, what? Like, no. Like, it is 1 week. I'm not talking 1 week frontier. I'm like, I did myself probably more than 300 inceptions. Like, I did so many. If you make it short, it doesn't fit. It's got to be 1 week. So that's the most common problem that you have to convince. That's why I end up writing a book and making videos. That's why I'm taping this video, because you got to show. In Brazil, it helps a lot because a lot of companies already did it. And then someone say, hey, on that company, we tried in 2 days and didn't work. So in Brazil, we have the shared experience and people are used to it. And whenever it's a new organization doing it, that's the toughest one, is book a week. Which, by the way, is the same problem that Jake Knapp has for Design Sprint. But Design Sprint, it's easier because you use the team doing the design. Lean Inception is a little worse because you bring business, UX, and engineering. So I have this problem a little worse. He has the same problem as well. Second biggest problem, people that will be in and out. It's very common in the organizations that people have their agenda very busy, and they're like, okay, I'm going to be there the whole week. But then the person leaves for 2 hours and then come back, and someone else leaves for 2 hours and come back. So that makes it very repetitive. So some people make a decision, on the following day, someone is asking, why are you building this feature? We shouldn't do it. It's like, even myself, I get confused as a facilitator, like, but we decided yesterday. And they realize, oh, the person's not in the room. So I try to make a very strong point about the agenda. You're either here the whole time or not. If you're not, you're a stakeholder, okay. But if you're a stakeholder, please be aware that you might interfere if you come in the room and disturb. I'm okay if stakeholders come in the room as long as they know that a lot of conversation happen while they're not there. And then the third one, biggest challenge, I'll put it to the success of Design Sprint. Those 2 methods, they were born at the same time, one in US, one in Brazil. And now what happened all over the world is like, it's very hard because Design Sprint is very useful to do something, focus on the design, to decide that at a prototype. Lean Inception is very useful to look at 3 different perspectives to make a plan for the MVP. And then nowadays I go to some organizations, they're like, amazing, this Lean Inception idea. So at the showcase, I want to see the MVP plan as well as the prototype. I'm like, it's not possible. Like, I know Jake Knapp, he run thousands of design sprint. He needs a week. I run like hundreds of Lean Inceptions. I need a week. And now you're saying, combine both of them in 1 week. Like, it's either one or the other work is going to be affected. So those are the 3 biggest current challenges I have with Lean Inception. Good question.
So I am from outside the IT. So my question is simple, like did you work with any companies or teams and use this way to design products that are not IT products? And can you give some examples?
Yes. I work for a software consultancy company, so majority of Inception I did is for digital products. But I used Inception before for a transformation. I work on a place, on a bank, doing a transformation program as a consultant. And that first week I was the principal consultant to decide the transformation work we're going to do, all the activities. So I did run a Inception, but was not product features, were activities for the transformation.
Of the business?
Of the business, yeah. It was a agile transformation in 2014. We were planning a transformation. Like now it's very common, everybody want to do a transformation. So we run an Inception. What is the vision of the business? What is the transformation, what it's not? What we're going to do into transformation, what it's not? Who are the main people involved on the transformation? We did the personas. And then we did, let's do an activities brainstorming for the transformation. I use more the word activities than feature. And then let's review each one of those activities. Do you know how to do it? Do you know what we want? Green, yellow, red. And we compared the effort and the value we thought it would bring, even to the users, the hearts, the journeys. We thought about the different journeys of the different people and put in order in a sequencer.
And did it work well? I assume it did.
It did. It requires the same facilitation skills. The sequence of activities is very good, despite of not being product. When I was writing the book in English, I used it without digital products, and I get feedback from readers. Oh, my wife works with this and she used for that. I have a friend, a colleague, she works on at global.com, a TV station, and they create a MasterChef show on that TV company using Inception, nothing to do with IT. So she facilitated Inception to decide the whole program that was created. I got a lot of those feedbacks when I was writing the book, and I thought about writing it in a different way, but I think it's easier to understand with a digital product. So I kept the book like talking about digital product, but I advise people like use and abuse it, like use for other contexts. It's easier to get something simple and use in other contexts than try to explain something in a little more abstract way. So yes.
I can try now.
Try and please share the results with the community.
You mentioned those pivot on the showcase
Yes.
when the CTO decides for going to another market. My question is that sort of pivot, is this starting the build, measure, learn loop, or is this starting another week of Inception? Because you produce a lot of, let's call them artifacts, personas, in case that you need to change them in terms of another market. Are you just doing the thing, or are you just starting to do maybe a shorter loop of this Inception week and then go in and build a product?
Well, what can I say? In that special case, I wish the CTO was in the room
Okay,
since the beginning. So I wish we had this information before.
that would spare you a week, yeah.
On that specific case was not a total loss because the features are the same. You know, there were some things we would have to do differently.
Right.
But here's the thing. I'm talking about a CTO of a very large corporation. I understand the CTO is not going to be with us the whole week. On the kickoff, the CTO did the kickoff, and he gave all the information he had and left the room. But he was, well, even though I gave the presentation, I talk on MVP, he was not aware that we're going to make decisions about features and talk about which market we're going to experiment and verify and do a build, measure, learn. The showcase took 2 hours. I always schedule for 2 hours. When it goes south or when it has a lot of conversations, it takes 2 hours. Some people there in the room felt like, oh man, it was not good. The CTO came to me and like, thank you, this was amazing. It was the best showcase I ever came. And he was there the whole 2 hours. You know. This is another thing about Friday. Friday usually is an easier day for these people as well. So they stayed, you know, and then like, and they want to participate. They just don't have time. So in my view, that was not a pivot because it was still in the plan. A pivot is more like after you get the data, you pivot directions. We didn't change directions, we just changed the plan. We adjusted the plan.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ooh.
Hi. Oh, it doesn't have a microphone, actually. Okay. I really like your idea about the features. How you do the features first, not the journeys, to get more ideas and open up more. I have a question. Like, I'm the UX designer, and I've read the book of Jeff Knapp.
Yeah.
And if you were to convince a person like me who already knows the design sprint, how is your methodology better? That's one question. And then a second question is like, don't you see the value in testing it with the users as they do on the 5th day to validate it like before 2 months of work?
Great question. The first thing is like, I don't say Inception is better than design think. There are two different methodologies for two different things. The Inception, you want to bring business people, technical people, and the business to try to understand that intersection and do not think and decide the prototype. But make a plan and decide what is the MVP, what do we need to validate. Inception is about the what. We understand the why from the business, we heard a few users, you bring all this data and you answer with the what am I going to create to validate it. Design sprint is more about the how. You put in front of the users and you validate the how. In my view, in a perfect world, which happens in some organizations, they have a great UX team which do a lot of UX research. And then the UX team participates on the Inception. And then after the Inception, now the UX team get the result of the Inception, which is the MVP, which are very narrow defined strategy for the product, and then the UX team run a design sprint for the MVP. That scenario for me is perfect. It's hard to find in the organizations, but that for me is the perfect scenario. Jake Knapp has an amazing methodology to go really fast, verify, think about the business, verify a few options, test it with real users, and say, hey, this prototype is really good. That works well in a smaller context.
Okay.
Or that works well if you have a lot of smaller context and you have a lot of ideas and you want to test them fast. But if it is a startup on a late stage where, whoa, looks like we have a good idea and you want to prove it, that's MVP. Or if you have an organization with different stakeholders, business, IT, security, marketing, engineering, and you want to align them, it's not a design sprint. A design sprint is when I'm defining the how about the interface. So they are both really good workshops. What they have in common, which I found amazing. It's so funny because I work at Google the same time Jake Knapp was working there. We almost work on the same project. I'll tell you later, not online, because I don't know if I can say exactly the project names. We almost worked together. I'm glad we didn't work together because we were there like the same time. But then I moved to India and then I went to Brazil. He stayed there and then he moved and to other places as well. The thing is, we lived on the same place at the same time, so we had the same influence. Agile, design thinking, lean startup. But my experience was different than his. And he's more a designer, I'm more of a developer. We both came to the conclusion we need a collaborative workshop for 1 week. But that's a coincidence? Well, it's not a coincidence. Like, based on his experience, my experience, which means something. And then another thing that he realized, like, I need a facilitator. I realized the same. It was very hard to have an Inception without one facilitator. Another thing we did it differently is, on the Inception, I want to look at 3 different perspectives. So there is no decision maker. The decision maker is not the business, it's not UX, it's not technology. Everybody's equal. So as a facilitator, I gotta make sure that everybody's equal in the room, everybody's heard. Therefore, we have different activities, looking from different angles. Jake Knapp looks at it differently. I need to decide on the design. So on the first day, he asks, who's the decision maker? If you're in doubt, that's the person deciding. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, this way he avoids the situation when.
Yes.
This way he avoids the situation when at the end the boss comes in and he's like, oh no, I don't like the idea.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So you have a decision maker there. In Inception, I have that challenge, like, how do you make a decision? I postpone the decision to the sequencer. That's what I do. Like, of course, if the big boss, that woman, the big boss, there will make the decision, she'll make the decision anyway, but at least she heard everybody else, and then everybody will be like on the sequencer saying, no, but this should go first for this reason. And then usually people are able to convince because they've been together for 4 days when they go to the sequencer.
So I have a question with regard to what you said nearly at the beginning. 3-week sprints versus 1-week sprints. And I believe there was some game changer. There was a story, analogy about the slice of the cake, piece of the cake, versus cupcake.
Yes.
And I would like to ask you about the context, like lean, when we are lean inception, when we are exploring new things, new markets, want to verify the thesis, versus we have already established services, IT, or doesn't matter, but it is very well structured, very conservative, like government deals, etc. So how we can approach this to ensure that we have this MVP within 1 week, ensuring that we are covering all the other factors like security, legal, etc.
Okay. I don't use Leanception for exploring options. So I prefer to use other methodologies like ideation, a lot of discovery things. And in fact, sometimes to explore options, 1 week's not enough. You need to do a lot of things to explore options, or even design sprint to explore several different options for the design. So I don't use Leanception for exploring options. I use Leanception, if you look at the double diamond, it's discover, define, design, and deliver. Discover for me is exploring options, opening your options, understanding the options. For me, Inception is when you're closing the option, define what is the MVP. So I'll use the Inception for the second one, for align what is the MVP. So that's useful in a startup context where we explored a few options, looked like this one is the winner, let's do it, or there are several initiatives and this is my best bet. I'm using a word from the enterprise book now. This is the best bet. Let's do a Leanception it. Or for large organizations like the sample you talked, like security and ops people and all of this, where you need to align a group of people to decide on the product strategy. So that works for the Inception as well. When I go to a very large organization, it is their first Inception. Even though I use the word MVP, they're thinking about the overall product. And when they do the sequencer, they look at it and they see a release plan. Even though I use the word MVP, I'll say, please do the sequencer, where is the MVP? They'll tell me what is the MVP. But in their mind, that's the first release, and they will continue going that way. Because a large corporation, it's used to work with a large release plan. So the jump's too big from them to go from a large corporation for a release plan that I use safe to align everybody to, I'll do the MVP. So I'm okay because these people, these organizations, they use the Leanception with focus on the overall release plan. The focus will be more on the sequencer than in the MVP canvas. But they get a lot of gain from the Leanception because by using those activities, they're able to align the group of people in the product strategy and in which order they should create it. And even though they use the word MVP, meaning release, at least they will release soon. They release soon and often, because the moment you say MVP, even though it's not an MVP, they're not proving a business hypothesis because they'll keep following that. There will be short release cycles and they will benefit from that as well. And if they keep using the word MVP, 1 or 2 years down the line, they'll start work with MVP and they'll go into the build, measure, learn cycle. So I'm okay using the word MVP, even though it's only a release for now.
Yeah, I'm just taking from what you said that there are no silver bullets and we just need to adjust to the context.
Yeah, yes, please. In fact, in Brazil, as a consultant, a lot of companies call me, oh, please, Paulo, come here. I want you to run a Leanception. And when I go there, I understand the need, I run some other workshop, not a Leanception. I'm called several times because the book got famous and they call me, I want a Leanception. Once I understand the need, I run something else. So be aware that there's no silver bullet. It's only one more tool that we have in the Batman thing of a lot of tools that we have. It's another tool, but it's not for all the case.
Thank you for a very interesting conception. Um, uh, I agree with you that the people are the most important. The two questions regarding them: who should be the facilitator? One of these three groups: business, UX, or technology, or someone else, someone from outside the business. And second, how to compose those groups to keep the balance between these three groups.
Good question. The first one, who should be the facilitator?
Yeah.
From which group? I would say the facilitator should be a person wearing the facilitator hat. Because if you come from the business side and you work as a facilitator, you gotta be facilitating the conversation. Don't be in the position of making decisions. The facilitator is neutral. It fosters the conversation, it don't makes the decision. As a facilitator, I won't write, I might, in the feature brainstorming, I might write the feature, but we are talking the features. It's not me as a facilitator that I'm deciding. So it's very important that if you are facilitating, wear the facilitator hat. Don't make decisions of your own. Talk to people. Follow the activities. Each activity has, for example, the product vision. It's more for the business side. On that activity, the conversation would be more about the business. Then you have activity about the persona. Even though you are a business person or engineer facilitating, that activity goes towards the persona side. And then you have the semaphore and the table comparison. That one, it always goes a little bit to the technical side. Because the question, do you know how to do? And it fosters a lot of conversation about architecture. It will go more to the technical side. So even though you're a facilitator from one of those sides, let each activity go a little bit to the other side. Don't interfere with it. The only thing you need to do as facilitator on the sequencer, tell the rules and step away. So if you are the facilitator, don't decide on the sequencer. You know, that would be my advice. The most common role facilitating inceptions are agile coaches, because usually agile coaches are in this position right in the middle, and then product owners, because they have a lot of interest of having a very well-aligned group about the product. Those are the most common roles facilitating inception. A lot of engineers, I was a developer, I used to facilitate inceptions, those happen as well. This was the first question, right? And I forgot the second one.
The second was how to compose those.
Oh, how to compose?
The groups in the workshop.
Before the inception, I call it the pre-inception work. You need to explain what is the inception, what is each activity, and the need to have those three perspectives represented on the room. So you gotta ask, hey, do we have UX in the company? Can the UX people be on it? By the way, they must be on it. Who did customer research? Can they be with us in the room the whole time? It's a whole team, can at least 2 of them be there, 3? The same question for the business. Several places I go, oh, the business person is only the PO. No, who else about the business? What about marketing people? Can they be on the room? They're affected by it. Sales people, depending on the hospital, the nurse are there. So this is the pre-inception work. Try to understand the context and tell that it's very important for these people to be in the room. And technical people as well. The tester should be there. The security people, it's a bank. Yeah, security people need to be there. Yes, it's hard for them. Yes, because they're involved with several things. I did Inception on bank before. So what I do as a facilitator, I don't ask people, hey, if you're in the room, laptops off, phones off. No, the security person is in the room. Like the phone is on the whole time and the computer as well. But the person sitting at the room, just by being present there, the conversation gravitates towards security much more. And also the person is listening. If there's something the person don't agree, he or she is gonna say. So the pre-inception work, talk about it, invite people to represent the 3 perspectives. On the kickoff, repeat the message. And on the kickoff, when everybody introduces themselves, ask them to introduce themselves after the kickoff, the people that stay in the room. And as a facilitator, if you notice, wait a second, there is no one representing UX, talk about it. Hey, I realize no one here is representing UX. Is this a thing in the organization where we don't have any UX representatives, or it's a super innovation that we're going to create like Steve Jobs that I don't talk to the users? Then talk about it and bring this point. The question you made me, make this question on the Inception. Thank you.
I had a similar question, actually, to the man here on the left. In terms of picking people for the teams, from your experience, is it better if they've already worked together? Does it increase their collaboration, communication, or you'd rather take people that actually don't have already established kind of communication channels between each other and things?
That's a great question. Right? If the group has worked together and they have a good bonding, it's great. If the group work together and they want to kill themselves, don't put them in their own Inception, they'll kill each other. In my case, because I'm from a consultancy, it's not very common that the group has worked together. The most common is some people in the client work together, these people from the consulting are arriving for that project, and usually people from the business, it's a new initiative for the business, so it's not that common that they are already work of this group. So majority Inception I do. Some people work together in smaller groups, the UX, the developers, but like it's the first time that group is getting together. That has been my experience. What happens sometimes is the team's successful, a few months later they invite me to run the Inception again. It's more fun, because then the team has been working together. So if you have this amazing scenario to keep the same team going for a long time, it's going to be a nicer environment. Thank you.
Hi, Paulo. My name is Carol. I'm wondering if you know the idea of the fuck-up nights. The fuck-up nights. No. The fuck-up nights is the meeting where some people...
I saw the other day on LinkedIn.
Yeah, they tell about their personal fuck-ups doing some business. And I'm wondering if you, during this all years using this tool,
the fuck-ups I did?
Do you have any fuck-up you could tell us about?
I can tell you a few.
Great. So we could learn what may go wrong, what not to do, and maybe have some fun too.
Okay. You're a facilitator. It's very important that you create a friendly environment. I'll give you an example. Probably today I made this mistake a few times. On the past I used to make more. Sometimes I would say, in Portuguese is worse than in English, because when you say the developer in Portuguese you gotta say, you use the male, there's no neutral. When you say developer, the correct sentence in Portuguese is the man developer, something like that. As a facilitator, you need to be super aware of that, for instance, so you don't make those mistakes. And if you do, or if you see someone using words that are offensive to other people or not being okay in a social group, you need to interfere somehow. So that's the first thing as a facilitator. I never did a big fuck up about this, but I'm very conscious about that. That fuck up I don't want to do. Fuck ups I did, for example, I went to a bank and suit and a tie to facilitate, and I got there, was a super young bank and they have banned suit and tie like 1 month before. But I made a trip to go there, so I only had like, very formal clothes. It's terrible, like I should have done a better job before going there. Another one I did, I did this a few months ago. I took a tape, one of those red tapes. So I painted the whole wall with red tapes. And I realized that on Friday when I was taking the things off the wall. I had no idea that the red tape after 5 days would stay on the white wall. So as a team we had fun because the whole team went to the market, bought some things, and we were like drinking beers and, and cleaning the wall.
In the terms of the outcome of the workshop?
In the terms of the product itself, have heard about vanity metrics? So many products I was doing Inception in 2013, 2014, it was all about vanity metrics. I think we're not very good at dealing with metrics until today, but we were much worse 5 years ago. One book that I love is like the one metric that really matters. especially with MVP. When they talk about MVP, we don't want to talk about KPI of the product of all the metrics. Like, I figure out, I think, did the whole session, then there's MVP. What is the one metric that matters to validate this hypothesis? It's very hard to talk about it, but it usually talks only one metric. But most of the people use vanity metrics. Oh, number of downloads of the app, number of people visiting the site. So, because I've been doing Inception since 2012, 13, I helped some companies build some fucked up products, which were very beautiful vanity metrics, even look beautiful at the MVP canvas. They're celebrating, but never proved the business. Looking back at those pictures, after reading more about metrics, I realized, oh, look at those metrics. So it's but that's a combined fuck up. Because the facilitator is neutral, I don't take all the blame for this fuck up. I think it's, you know, it's a group fuck up that we did there.
Okay, so do you have any common metrics you could suggest to us to use for such MVPs, or are they always different?
It varies a lot on the context and the strategy, because the same problem, the same solution might have different strategies, and then the match is totally different. Like, look at WhatsApp strategy. You know, if I was facilitating, I would say, "Hey, come on, what about revenue? What about revenue?" And they're super successful. But the business people behind it, they were measuring something that showed that, hey, years down the line it's going to be good. So it depends a lot on the strategy. But strategy is the core of the business. So as a facilitator, because I've been in so many Inception and I heard about so many different strategies, I make open questions. Is this a good metric? What about that? And that other one? I will give you another example. What if this? What if that? I won't say, hey, I think this metric's better. But I'll make open questions.
Thanks.
Thank you. And if I drink beer, I'll tell you more fuck-up stories.
My question is very simple. In which type of markets, for example, IT, technology, business, the lean Inception work the best? What is your experience?
I came from Silicon Valley. My whole career is on digital products. So lean Inception goes really well for digital products, especially with the infrastructure, feature toggle, all the continuous delivery movement. Like, the tools those days are very evolved to help us work with MVP on digital product. But I stay in a software consultancy, so my whole professional experience has been digital product. But Eric Ries's new book, like, he released the book on Lean Startup 2011, and he released another book 2016-17, I think, the Startup Way. He kept working with Lean Startup, but on his case, he's been using Lean Startup for very different things, even in politics in the US. So he used the same concept to build, measure, learn for non-digital product things, and he says it's going really well. So from his experience, I would say Lean Inception is about align a group of people to decide what's the minimal viable for something. From the feedback I got from the users, from the readers of the book, people are applying Lean Inception besides digital product.
Hello. First of all, thank you for the great lecture. Since I'm working as a Scrum Master and very often facilitating some workshops, meetings, and so on and so forth, I very often, especially in new environment, come across certain dose of negativity towards what I'm, let's say, offering or trying to introduce in given environment. So have you experienced that regarding this idea? Because we are listening to lots of positive stories now, which is great, but in my own experience, I sometimes tend to meet people who are really negative. So my question is, how did you cope with such situations? And the second question is, if in the group that we are working with during the whole week, there is like a person really like destroying the good atmosphere, the proactive approach, and so on and so forth, is it better to somehow get rid of this person or still trying to... but really, like, if there is like this kind of impediment, then sometimes maybe it's a shared decision just to exchange this person because it's not bringing any value. or still let's keep trying and trying?
It's another question that I need a few beers to answer. Yes, it's better to get rid of that person. If you have someone negative, like bring the whole group down, it's better to not have that person there. But as a Scrum Master, as a facilitator, we have to facilitate a group of people with the current combination of people. On the Leanception, I use a lot of, I'm also the author of funretrospectives.com, and that website I have a lot of energizers to make it a fun environment. So during the Leanception, I use a lot of icebreakers to break the ice and make it a fun environment. Other thing I do in the Leanception, several times I'll break into smaller groups. So if there's one person that's very negative, when you have a bunch of smaller groups, that person is being very negative only in a small group. So make sure to keep on switching the small groups, so that person only bothers a few people at a time, so it doesn't affect the end result at the end. When it's the whole group talking and you are the facilitator at the center of the conversation, find a way to neutralize the negativity of that person. So those are the things you gotta do as a facilitator. When I go to a new group, which is always the case, on Monday I'll give a very strong message that I am the facilitator. I send emails before saying I am the facilitator. On the kickoff, I'll make the presentation like I am the facilitator. In that room, I'm a very neutral facilitator. I want everybody to talk, but I'm the facilitator. So if you say a sexist joke, I'll have to approach you and talk about you like, hey, this is not okay. If you're very negative and it's bring everybody down, at lunchtime I'll sit next to you, I have a conversation, hey, how is life, how are things? You know, like I'll have to do something as a facilitator to make life better for everybody. It's probably like the same you do as a Scrum Master, right? You have to handle it. But it does happen, especially in a collaborative workshop, because people get comfortable and they're going to behave as they are.
Paulo, thank you for an interesting presentation. My question is about, I'm interested in how to convince high managers or managers to use this MVP approach or a lean inception. About your experience, what are the best arguments based on your experience? What are the best strategy to convince managers? Yeah, because they need to send their people and spend some time to check it. Yeah.
The strategy depends on the person you're trying to convince, right? If the person likes to read, give books that talk their language. For example, Lean Startup. It's a book that talks the business language. Don't give the Leanception book. Well, give first the Lean Startup and then the Leanception. If it is a Scrum Master, give the Leanception. You know, if it is a product owner, give the Leanception. A CEO, give the Lean Startup. If the person likes, hey, I like how to do it, then you give the Leanception. The best way to convince someone to do is talk about what the competitors are doing. That's another way. Like, hey, I don't know where you work, but that's the thing, as a consultant, I've been in so many places, I know what the competitors are using. And then say, hey, do you know that they've been doing this Leanception thing for 2 years and have seen this and that product? I was at the room. It was pretty fast, no? Pretty good. Like, talk about competitors is a good strategy. Another one is find someone in the organization that already has this experience, that person trusts. Sharing experience. But don't try to convince with normal arguments. It's good because find ways around it. You know, yeah. Find stories for the competitors or from the industry. If I can help, like ask me. Then as a consultant, I'll share. People in Brazil do this a lot because I got famous in Brazil with this. If they have hard time convincing, they ask help and like I will talk to the CTO or we'll make a Skype or a Zoom. I'll try to help as well outside of Brazil.
So I assume that after having this workshop, so after 1 week, the team or at least the business will know what to build as a MVP. Then you will switch to another framework to the actual execution of
yes.
and the delivery. Would you suggest to have multiple workshops, like a kind of milestone down the line, And if so, would you suggest to have with the same team, a different team, a mixed team, like to expand the experience or deeper the experience?
You do the inception to align the group, decide what's the MVP and start working. Then you go to the execution, you're probably using Scrum or Kanban or a combination. Down the line, what happens? Let's say your MVP takes like 2 months to create, 2-3 months. What happens is the team's working, and then the team finishes the MVP. And then it goes to collect feedback. While it's collect feedback, you need some time. It's 1, 2, 3 weeks. Usually what happens, like, what is the team doing at this moment? Usually the team is working in a feature related to the product that can be worked on despite of the feedback of the users. If the team work on a feature that depends on the feedback of the users, might be a waste of time if the users prove, but that direction is not good. So the team usually work on something else that's not unproven by the users. But once you get feedback from the users, what happens now? You have the old Inception plan from 3 months ago, high level and feature level. You have user stories on your backlog or tasks in very low level, very defined from the developers. You have feedback from the users, and now the business has spent 3 months and the business has evolved as well. So now it's a good moment. Instead of only looking about pivot or persevere, it's a good moment to stop and do a workshop to align people again. You don't need to do a Leanception, you don't need 5 days for that. That workshop is either 1 or 2 days where you align objectives and key results from the business, especially now that we work together for a few months. It will be easier to talk about OKRs for that team. To look at the backlog and decide which features still make sense given the feedback from the users. And then look at your sequencer from the Leanception and see if that order still makes sense given the feedback of the user. So it is worth doing a workshop. It's not a Leanception. It's either this kind of workshop or a design sprint for the next few features. Good question. By the way, really good questions here.
Hi, thank you for interesting presentation. I'm a service designer and I'm working a lot as a facilitator, mostly doing design sprints, but not just them, also different kind of workshops. And when I see that you're saying that there's a combination of design thinking and lean startup within this lean inception concept, and when I see that during this inception week you are working on personas or user journeys, then my question is, or would be, whether do you do any preparation? Because from my perspective, is when you're going to align people around something, then they should have at least some validated information about their users and how do they behave. Do you do something like that, and how do you then spread the information among people?
I'll just reword your question. You said, I see in the Inception you have a few activities where people are working on personas and user journey. I would rephrase to, there are sessions where people are sharing information they have about personas and share information they have about user journey. I prefer the word share because it implies that most likely there was a group of people working before learning about personas and their journeys. And in the Inception, we're just sharing that group with people with different knowledge and experience, information that they have about those personas and those journeys. This is the best scenario where usually UX people that finally, now in every company I go, there's UX people. They did the research, so we do a very rich Leanception with information from the users. On the past, we would do Leanception, there was no user research. So the personas and the journeys, they were hypothetical.
Aren't you afraid that they're going to be a kind of a Frankenstein? Like,
Yes,
many people are
definitely.
putting, their ideas in.
But that's the hard thing. It's like the Ford sentence. If I had asked people what they want, they would say faster horses. Steve Jobs used to say similar thing. I done Inception with.
That risk. So you're taking that risk of.
It's up to the company. If it is a small group that don't consider UX because they think like Steve Jobs and they're gonna be the 1 in a million as successful as Steve Jobs, that's okay. I prefer to have UX research before. Let's not do UX research for 3 months. Yeah. Do some amount of work. I like a little more than a design sprint. I think design sprint is too fast for design, for research. Do some research and then an Inception. It's a much richer experience. It's difficult to say because I never run the same Inception twice, but like the ones that have UX data, they're better. The products are more successful. That I can say. Yeah, look, I'm thinking about the ones that failed the product and the ones that didn't. The more data you have, the lesser the chances of you missing totally your user at the end. So I'm there with you. Like, do some UX work before.
So, in our organization, we use a similar approach to incept the work on an MVP. And there is one element which I think didn't appear in your presentation. So we are talking also about risks, about what can go wrong from the technology, the business point of view, different angles. Do you think this is a good topic also to discuss during this week?
Yes and no. Yes, related to the features. When you do the technical UX and business review, you have like green, yellow, red. Red is uncertainty. Some uncertainty might relate to risk, but risk about a product. But if you're a very innovative startup and you want to try something new, it's the risk and innovation are right there. So that conversation about the risk, either from the business or the technical perspective that I have no clue how to do it, we've never done it before, it's Scala, just released, I don't know how to do it, that's going to be there. That risk specific to small product features. You have to take care during the execution about project risks. On the past, on inceptions, I would use active like RAID, risk, assumptions, issues, and dependencies on the inception. On the Inception, I removed it. And then I tried Inception with a specific activity for risk. And then I decided to remove. The reason is the Inception is focusing more on the product than in the project. The moment I add a risk activity on the Inception, it shifts a little bit the thinking towards project. That's why...
it's focused more on the features, on the scope?
On the risk about features and scope.
On the approach how to build it in the future, yeah? So
the conversation on technical UX and business review, the group will talk about individual risk from the features. Risks about the project, it's not explicit there. But on the MVP canvas, it's very clear what are we trying here. If you look at the colors of the features on the MVP canvas, you know if there is more or less risk. If the MVP canvas has 5 features and 4 are red, call it innovation or risk, like you know it's a lot of red.
But in my case, it's also about like business risks, because if we are going to give this MVP to the real customers who bring money, we should think in advance how it can go wrong with their they're thinking about our products, for example.
You should hire her to do a good UX work, to think in advance, so when you do the Inception, the things are not ready because you have the knowledge and you have the answer. If you haven't hired her in advance, that's going to be a risk. Okay, and things will be red.
Hiring
on that
UX is the way of facilitating this kind of risks.
No. Before, hire UX, not only for the Inception, hire UX 2 months before, let they do a good UX research, and then you have an Inception to help you define what your engineer or the team should build.
Thank you.
So address the risks sooner. I connect.
I'm wondering, what is the minimal set of things you need to prepare before the Lean Inception workshop to make sure it will be successful?
Minimum set of things is you need a room and you need people in the room.
So from your experience, market research or something like that is not necessary?
Yeah, the room, because it's hard to find rooms on organizations because they're booked with a lot of small meetings. Room, if you don't have a room, like a good advice is like rent a hotel room. It's even good because you take people out of the office, they will focus on it. And then the people as well. You might do all this and no one shows up. It means you got to do some pre-inception work to make sure you have the right people there. The rest, post-it, all those things like, if you get there on Monday, there's none, you figure out. Even the book, you know, go on Amazon, buy on Kindle, like follow activity by activity. It's simple. The room and the people are the most difficult things to find those days. Hopefully organizations on the future will have enough room space.
We have business guys, so we have business guys, we have UX guys and engineering guys. And usually engineering guys are, after 3 days of working with post-its, are eager to do something. And did you face such problems, and maybe you have an idea to let them work on something concrete?
Yeah, so do like this. While you're doing UX research, tell them to do some spikes before the inception. And then after the inception, they will do the path to production, sprint zero. They'll be coding right before and right after. You know, during the inception, it's okay. But they'll be happy because they'll draw some architecture diagrams and they'll talk about things. Especially like the technical UX and business review, they love it. Because they go, no, I don't know how to do it. Oh, I know I did it before I didn't. So at that moment, they get really happy. Like they start showing code and architecture things. But you'd be surprised. Engineers like to be involved in business conversations. I am a developer, and look where I ended up doing.
Okay. One more question about how to spread the idea. Yeah, we just heard we can buy your book, and give it to the CTO, CEO. Are there other things you can recommend how to spread? For example, do you do train the trainer sessions? Is there an academy or some, video university in the internet? Or?
That's the good thing, like, I'm not alone. It's like, it's Lean Startup, it's Lean Inception, it's Lean UX. Like, there's a lot of people that work already on these different ways. So it's not only me, I'm not the only crazy. There are more crazy people out there. So I have the books. What I do as the author, I put myself in the position, like, I need to go and do talks, like here, like, I'm coming to do work tomorrow. So I'm like, okay, let me find some nice people, which I found, and like, let me share the word. That's what I do as an author. I need to answer questions on LinkedIn or even my WhatsApp whenever people need. Like, I'm available because I want to help spread the word. And there are trainings as well. So there are trainings and there are trainers. The thing about the trainers are people experienced with Lean Inception. So a lot of people experienced with Lean Inception with 5 years experience or more, they're Brazilians. And not all the Brazilians speak all the language. That's the difficulty I was having. But luckily enough, because I work for an international company, I did Lean Inceptions in other places. So there are other people from other nationalities that they have been doing for a while. So what I do now, I'm connecting with them and trying to support them with the trainings worldwide.
Let it grow by the community, let's say.
Yeah, but that's the thing. I want it to grow by the community, by the experienced people. I don't want it to grow commercially somehow. That's why I don't do online trainings, because I want to be exchange of practice
that's why
by the community.
That's why I was asking about the trainer. That in my company we would do like this, invite you and let's train 10 trainers.
No, invite me. Like, I put myself in my role. ThoughtWorks know about this, and I need to spread the word because it's a good methodology. Like, in my view, I'm spreading the word to create better work environments. The work environments where we collaborate more, they're more fun. They're lighter. Like, it's a nicer environment. We become more successful as organization and as people. That's what I like doing. That's why I like spreading the word and running the Inceptions. So that's what I offer. Like, if you need, I'll come to a training. If not me, someone else. I'll find someone, even a Brazilian, will say, okay, who speaks whatever language? Who wants to go to Warsaw? Someone will say, okay, I'll go. And then I'll find a way to bring someone here to help. Thank you. Well, once again, thank you for your time. It was a really good conversation. Oh, one more.
Just one.
Oh, last one.
Last question. Yeah. So thank you for a great lecture. Regarding people, what is the number which you consider as a well-working group, and when the crowd you know, what's the number for the crowd, and you know, the group is not working as you wish?
That's a difficult question, because as a facilitator, you want to invite people over. So if you invite and come like 5 people from the business, great. You're not going to say, oh, no, only give me 2. And if you invite, let's say, you work on a bank, and then there's security, there's architecture team, and then there's this, like, I facilitate Inceptions with...
For example, yeah? You might end up with 50 people in the room, and it would be...
50 is too much, because you want the active team members, people that are going to be actively involved on it. 50 is not common, but like maybe you end up with 20, 25.
So based on your experience...
It depends on the complexity of the initiative and the program. Like I cannot tell, well, an airline company with very complex situation, I had Inception with 30 people, but we're like people from 2 different teams figure out one initiative together. It was 30 people. It's hard to facilitate, but that was the context of that company. You have to handle it. So as a facilitator, I won't put a limit. And another problem that happens is once the organization uses Inception, the next one, a lot of people want to come to learn. And then you might have a lot of people, not only from the initiative, but the ones that are trying to learn, because we don't have a lot of trainings. And you know, the best way to learn is like be close to a Inception, and then you learn. But again, the facilitator should be open to invite more people to learn.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, once again, thank you for your time. I hope you had a good conversation, as good as I had. And I'll see you soon. Thank you.